Welcome back to some new petty revenge stories. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called The Only IT. For context, I have been working in IT my whole working life. Several years ago, I was approached by someone who owns a small private college and offered a job. I had several years of IT experience by that time, mostly working at colleges in the area. I accepted the job. There, I was the only IT. There was no IT department, just me. The internet was laughable, something like 100 megabits for the whole school. They were trying to expand and get approval for a new program. So I took on the daunting task of getting the school up to date. They were simultaneously working to move to online tests and homework. Everything was paper when I started there, so I moved very fast to do this. I also assisted with providing whatever paperwork, spreadsheets, schedules, etc. the school needed to get their new program approval finalized. Once that was all done, I continued to work as the only IT on campus. Then my boss asked me to work in admissions in addition to my own department to take applications for the new program they got. There were so many other jobs they gave me that I don't even remember them all. They needed about 6 people to do all of that work, but I did it. Fast forward to 2021. I decide I've had enough. I enroll in the program that I helped the school get. I took their crazy entrance exam. It had something like 10% pass rate and scored in the top 5 for that year. Then I quit my job. That place had become the worst job I had ever worked at. The boss had no respect for anyone around them, and the office had like 6 or 7 people working in it, including me. I was constantly being accused of doing nothing all day when I was working. When I quit, they did not hire anyone new to fill my position. They instead passed my work on to 3 other people, who of course already had their own jobs to do. I watched them struggle for about a month before another one quit. Their work also just got dispersed among the remaining employees. That left 4 people working full-time in the office. One of them, the one who had the absolute most jobs out of everyone there, started no call no showing at least once a week. Now, one of my favorite co-workers told me that she was just offered a new job with a 40% pay increase, benefits and room to grow. She is leaving in August, so that leaves 3 workers. And the guy that started no-showing has already informed the boss that he won't be working there anymore after this year is over. So that leaves 2 employees. One of them is part-time. I feel bad for taking joy in this, but something feels good about watching everyone get fed up with the garbage management there at the same time. The next story is called Nearly Got Himself Fired. Yesterday, early in the morning, late in third shift, well before first shift's hourly people start showing up in the factory, the deed was done. The players in this unintended, almost getting fired episode were me and the nepotism-loving production lead. As our factory environmentalist for the past 2 years, having worked myself up through the ranks, I take my job seriously as the EPA and DEQ do not have a sense of humor. Overall, I've been with the company for nigh on 15 years. I am in my 60s. Part of my job includes moving a 200-pound car to the 14 work areas in this giant factory to verify, calibrate and make sure everything is safe to use and operating within spec. I test lubricants, coolants, air and water quality, verify standards and test blocks of each work area. The other parts of my job are supervising a crew of 20 plus highly trained men and women. We work with engineers to improve our products. We work with IT for programming and the buyers for purchasing. And on the days the VP of operations takes a vacation, I fill in for him. The production lead for the third shift is late 30s and thinks he is God's gift to the factory. He's loud, whiny, boorish and probably only got his position because he's the son of one of our better senior engineers. He is not my friend. He's complained about me for the past 6 months to his mom, the senior engineer, about how my work interrupts his crew. He's whined to the VPO that my office and labs are huge and his desk is on the production floor. He's tried to blame his people's poor performance on me, etc. You get the picture. Yesterday, I parked my testing car near Module 7, unlocked the doors and pulled out one of the testing trays I use. I went to the front of the machinery and told the operator he could take a break for 15 minutes while I worked on his machine. He was happy to go outside for a smoke. He took off his PPE as I started up his machine for testing. It's a little loud, but I wear earplugs and ear muffles, and I begin my routine of checks on this module. There's nothing wrong, as this operator is a good one and takes good care of it. In just over 10 minutes I've completed all the testing and the operator comes back. We spent a minute with small talk as I take the machine out of the diagnostic mode and put it back to where he was. And in less than the 15 minutes I gave him, we were back in production. I pick up my tray and walk back to where I parked my cart. It's not there. It's missing. It's a cart with testing equipment worth a little over $200,000 and it is not where I left it. I'm in my 60s, so the first thing I suspect is Alzheimer's has finally caught up with me. I asked the operator if he saw where my cart was, and he said he didn't touch it, but did the darting eye thing, which told me maybe the production lead had moved it. I looked around and saw the little jerk in his reflective safety vest down in the main aisle, trying really hard not to look in my direction while he was talking to the operator of Module 4. Tray in hand, I walked to where he is and asked if he'd moved my cart. I knew he had, just by the way the operator of number 4 looked uncomfortable. The lead said, "Yeah, you left it in the aisle over the yellow line, so it was a safety hazard." So I moved it. I know I didn't, and if I had thought about it, I would have pulled up the video camera recording. I waited a beat. Then another, while he stood there thinking he'd found me doing something wrong that he could exploit to his advantage. We take safety very seriously. After the third beat, I asked him where he'd moved my cart. He finally told me he'd moved it half the factory array, and pointed. Seriously, I'm in my 60s with a bad knee, and half the factory array is a long walk. He then nodded to the operator and went off to not do whatever he was supposed to be doing, and I went to get my cart. I'm not a complainer. I'm a conservative from the last century, where men take care of their own problems. He knew I wouldn't say anything to his boss or HR or my boss. Don't misunderstand, I'm not milquetoast. If you violate one of our safety or environmental SOPs, I'll rain hell down with quiet ferocity and escort you out of our factory. I've done it a dozen times in the 2 years I've held this position. I manage the way I manage, and it seems to work. I may be in my 60s, but I am still a gamer. Into VR, a former director of IT, and a 14-year-old at heart. What the jerk who moved my car didn't know was I am still very good with computers. His desk was positioned in the pod of desks for production leads for every shift, where nearly everyone on the floor can see his monitor. I'd gotten my card and was pushing it to module number 8 when I heard the bell for the third shift to take its final break. I knew there'd be no one on the floor, as they went out for a smoke or to the canteen for a snack. It took me less than a minute to stop by his computer and swap his screensaver from the default floating clock we use to the rainbow flag of one of the community organizations I support. Our screensavers are default set to activate after 1 minute of inactivity, and I was well away from his computer before anyone was back from break. I had gotten module number 8 started in diagnostics and was elbow deep in testing when the operator, a 30-year veteran of the company, tapped me on the shoulder. I pulled out of the machine and lifted my hearing protection. He was chuckling and not saying a word. He nodded his head in the direction of the leader's desk. What I heard were many screams and swear words. As I'd hoped, he didn't know a lot about computers and didn't know how to change his screensaver. But I didn't think he'd be stupid enough to scream out those words, as we have several people working for us who are gay or bi. As long as they show up every day and do professional work, why should we care about their personal life? He was raving. I was savoring. I listened for just long enough to be a witness to his outburst, if asked. Then put my headgear on and went back to work. His loud proclamation was heard by 2 people who were offended and turned him into his boss, and 1 who turned him into HR. By the time first shift started, he'd be written up at level 3, skipping levels 1 and 2. This means probation, and any violation in the next 12 months gets him fired. Also no bonuses or pay raise while on probation. And he has to attend 12 hours of sensitivity and inclusion training at the local community college. No one asked me who put the screensaver on his desk, and it stayed on through most of the first shift, until one of the level 1 ITs came and changed it back to the clock. The last story is called Office Receptionist. I worked in a big tech company, and our receptionist was the nosiest, rudest woman with whom I've ever had the misfortune to work. She officially had limited duties one would expect from a receptionist, but she took it upon herself to be the office police and monitor. We walk in, she looks at the clock and notifies us if we are a minute late. We leave for lunch, she again looks at the clock and asks where we are going. We get a package delivered. She has to know if it's business or personal and what's in it. A friend comes over to meet someone for lunch. She has to know why they are there, where we are going. She'd come by and look around our desk while we were at lunch. She'd take a smoke break, prop open the main door so she could hear the phones and let the smoke waft into the lobby. To management, she was the golden child and could do no wrong. But to everyone else, she was the worst, and we didn't like her one bit. The big open-air, two-level lobby where her desk was sat directly below the upstairs lounge, where we could take a break from work, look out the window and relax for a bit and quiet. The front of her desk was directly below the second-story railing. Sometimes she'd call out, "Who's up there? Is it your break time to be up there?" if she heard someone. When she leaned her head over the front of her desk and looked up, she could see anyone at the railing. Or take the big lobby staircase upstairs and look who's there. Between these two levels and above her desk was an air duct, which blew air horizontally toward the main door. And our AC system had recently been tested and cleaned. One day, some friends and I left for lunch, passing by her, and out through the front door. But I circled around the building and came back inside via the back door. I quietly took the back staircase up to the lounge and began our campaign to drive her crazy. I'd bought a 6-pack of those kid-sized bubble bottles with the wand a few weeks back for this very purpose. I crept over to the railing above the AC vent above her desk and quietly blew tiny bubbles down to her desk for a few minutes. From my position, I could see her faint reflection in her window. We tested before that anyone at her desk couldn't see upstairs, as she attempted to figure out what was going on. "What the? Anyone up there?" she called and muttered to herself. When the air stopped blowing, I stopped with the bubbles. I heard her start up the stairs, so I sneaked out of the empty lounge, waited a few minutes, then went back at it. I left the building the same way I entered for the prank and came back in with my co-workers through the front door after lunch. She was on the phone with the office manager, saying that the AC was malfunctioning. The next day, at a different time, I repeated the bubbles. This went on for a few days, but I only did it when she was on duty. If I had a day off, one of my cohorts did the bubbles. The manager called the AC company back out to find out what was going on with the system, but they couldn't find anything wrong. And she swore bubbles were coming out of the vent. No one else in the office had seen them, and a few said she was imagining things. This was before video recording on phones, so she couldn't attain proof. She continued begging the manager to fix the problem, as it was driving her crazy. But eventually, he said she was just nuts and refused to listen to her. Even after I left for another job, the bubble tradition with my cohorts continued to torment her. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.